Hello and welcome to week 16 of our piano proficiency adventure. Today we're going to be looking at a syncopation warm-up as usual. Now remember, we only have this one and the next one as our 8th note syncopation warm-ups, and then in the next unit we will be switching to looking at triplets and 16th notes, alright? We're also going to be looking at our very last inversion blending table today, alright? And then we will use that inversion blending to look at another style of music and a little piece I wrote, which is a prelude, and we'll be looking at that prelude in the key of E major. All right, so let's head on over to the drum and get rhythmically warmed up. All right, here we are with our week 16 rhythm warm-up. Now remember, we have this one and the next one as our last 8th note syncopation warm-ups, and then in the next unit we will be starting to look at triplets and 16th notes. But today we're going to start with line 1. We're going to have the metronome at 50 BPM, and it will represent the downbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and switch your hands. 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right, let's move on to line 2. We'll speed our metronome up to 55 BPM, and now the clicks of the metronome will represent the upbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. All right. Now we'll be speeding up to 60 BPM with our metronome at halftime. So the metronome is at 30, we are at 60, and the metronome clicks will represent the first and the third upbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Switch hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Top line. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. All right, and last but not least, we'll turn the metronome up to 35, which means we will be going at 70 because this is at halftime, and that means that the metronome clicks will now represent the second and the fourth upbeats. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, change hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Top line hands together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. All right. Let's head on back over to the piano. Okay, let's take a look at our last inversion blending table today. Now remember, we have our circle of fourths and our circle of fifths up here. All right, we'll be ascending and descending, so when you read from left to right on this table, we'll be going counterclockwise around the circle, and when we read back from right to left, we will be going clockwise around the circle, okay? We have the same pattern of root position, second inversion, first inversion, or closed hand, open hand, open hand, closed hand, open hand, right? And then of course, that we have the common tones between each of these chords that don't move, all right? As well as we always have a half step and a whole step, all right? So let's go ahead and put this on the keyboard and see what happens. All right, let's start with our right hand. We're gonna start on a D major, and we'll open our hand up to G, swing around to C, and close back to a root position F. Open our hand back up to B flat, swing around to E flat, and close it back on A flat. We'll open back up to D flat, swing around to G flat, we'll head up to B in a root position, we'll open our hand up to E, swing around to A, and that brings us back finally to D. Now let's work our way back down to the E, close on a root position B, open back up to a G flat major, swing around to a D flat major, and we'll close back to A flat. Open back down to E flat, we'll swing around to B flat, and we'll close back on F. All right, we're gonna open down to C, swing around to G, and that brings us back to root position D. Alrighty, let's try it with our left hand. So we'll start with our D, open up to G, swing around to C, and close on F. Open up to B flat, swing around to E flat, and close on A flat. Open back up to D flat, swing around to G flat, and close on a B major. We'll open up on E, swing around to A, and that brings us back to D. We'll work our way back down, open back down to A, swing around to E, close on B, open back down to G flat, swing around to D flat, and close on A flat. We'll open down to E flat, swing around to B flat, and close on F. Now we'll open down to C, we'll swing around to G, and finally, that brings us back home to root position D. All right, and then finally, let's put these hands together. Now remember, I always encourage you to A, take your time, right? And B, to say the names of these chords as you're playing them, because it is possible for you to play this with just muscle memory. And while that will help, right, we do want to build our muscle memory to get facility with the keyboard, we also want to be knowledgeable about what we're doing, okay? So don't forget to try to say the names of these chords as you play them. D, G, C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, and D. A, E, B, G flat, D flat, A flat, E flat, B flat, F, C, G, and finally back to D. For today's sight reading, I wrote us a prelude, and this would be a prelude sort of in the style of probably J.S. Bach. It's very similar in shape to his famous first prelude in C major. However, I wanted to give us some more facility with different keys. As you know, I try to really give us lots of different keys in this series, and so we'll be looking at the key of E today. All right. Now, in this style of prelude, we do use a lot of inversion blending because, as you can see, each measure, if you didn't even read music, you would notice that if you took any measure in this piece, they all look about the same, right? And so what's happening here is we are taking a similar idea and we are only changing the notes little by little to blend them into different colors, into different chords, right? So this is yet another application of inversion blending where you want to shift the colors, but you want to do so subtly. And so that's what this prelude is. Now, not all preludes are like this. There really is no hard, fast rule for what a prelude can be. A prelude really just means that it is something that comes before something else, right? Now, this prelude doesn't come before anything else. It's just a prelude just because. But let's go ahead and take a look at the harmonies that we have in here today. Okay, so taking a look at the harmonies, there is no better place to start than the 1. Now, in this prelude, every measure is going to be repeated once, so we have another 1 and it is exactly the same. When we look at the next measure, we'll notice that we're going to have the 2, okay? The minor 2. And if you look at the right hand, that's where we're really going to be able to see that. We can see that we have our F sharp right here. We have our A right here, and we have our C sharp. So when you have F sharp, A, and C sharp, that gives you the second chord. All right, now we did keep this E in there, so technically you could count that as the 7th scale degree of the 2, but we're not going to worry too much about that, okay? It just gives us a little bit of flavor to keep that E in there along with the F sharp chord. 90% of the time after the 2, you will see the 5, and that is because we have circle of fifths motion. If you think about the circle, and we think about F sharp or G flat, right? We're at 6 o'clock on the circle. You move over 1 and you get B, and then that brings us back up 1 more to E, right? So we're going to be seeing a lot of 2, 5, 1 all over the place, and today is no exception. So here we have our 5, and then back to our 1. So for the very beginning of this piece, there was really nothing very fancy happening at all, right? It was just sort of a exploration of this melodic idea with a very basic progression of the 1, the 2, to the 5, to the 1, moving around the circle, very easy, all right? Now moving down here, we are going to start exploring some more interesting harmonies. So from the 1, we're going to pivot, and we're going to pivot to its relative minor, all right? And so that would be the 6, all right? And in this key, the 6 of E is C sharp minor. And if we look, we can see that here we have our C sharp. This is probably the place where the left hand has moved the most so far. We have literally moved into C sharp, G, and C sharp. All right, now I did put an F sharp up here, and the reason I did that was for a little bit of flavor. So while F sharp is not technically in the chord of the C sharp, I did that because I wanted to tie it together with the next few chords that we are going to see. So as you can see, I kind of made this F sharp consistent throughout this whole piece, almost like a pedal tone, right? And so the F sharp may or may not fit into these next chords, but it does anchor them together because they all are going to have it in common. All right, in this next measure, we're building the chord off of the 7th scale degree. And if you'll remember back to Harmony 101, the 7th scale degree gives us a diminished sound, all right? Now a diminished means that we have a 1, a flat 3, and a flat 5, all right? And technically in this measure, what we have is our 7, and I gave it a half diminished sound, all right? Now don't worry too much about half diminished right now. I will put a link in the description of this video if you'd like to look up more about half diminished, but in our next unit when we're looking at 4-note chords, we're gonna spend quite a bit of time studying the half diminished chord, and so we won't spend too much time doing that today, but there will be information in the description if you'd like to read up further on what that sound is. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go ahead and skip these two measures for just a moment, all right? Because I do want to show you how we're going to bring this home. And we're going to bring it home with a very basic 5/7, all right? So with that being said, we have the B dominant 7th sound there. How do you get to a dominant 7th chord? And one red flag should be that we have added accidentals, right? So when you see added accidentals in a shape that precedes a 5, you should automatically be thinking secondary dominant. And that's exactly what we have here. We have our 5 of our 5, okay? And of course, that's going to bring us home. All right, so up here we have our 1. Of course, you know, I'm a huge sucker for the minor 4, and I decided to throw it in there. And then, of course, we have back to the 1. Now, before we put our hands on this prelude, I want you to notice something, all right? You really shouldn't use the sustain pedal on this. You can really use take advantage of the ties. First of all, we have a whole note here. We have these tied notes and the tied notes up top. And so what we end up doing is we're going to be holding each of these chords in the left hand for the entire duration, all right? You're going to want to press the notes down and hold them for that entire measure, all right? And then the chord up top will dance on top of it, okay? So you shouldn't need to use the sustain pedal for this. You should be able to hold down the notes in your left hand, and that will give you that sustained effect, all right? So make sure that you follow the ties in this, and we'll see what happens with that right now. Let's go ahead and look at what the left hand is gonna do here. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 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 1 and... Just like that. Notice how I was always holding the notes down after I played them until the next measure, and that gave you that nice sustained effect. Also notice the use of inversion blending. Notice how none of the notes move too much, except maybe right here when you move down to the 6. That's really the only time you have to pick your left hand up and move it. But otherwise, we're using inversion blending by using common tones and half steps and whole steps, right? And the same thing is going to go for your right hand, okay? So let's go ahead and put these hands together and see what this sounds like. Okay, there we have it. If you'd like to purchase any of this sheet music, lesson outlines, or rhythmic warm-ups, you can find all that and more at my website, pianodojo.com. Next week will be our last week in this unit, and then we will be moving on to Unit 4, looking at 4-note chords and all of the fun scales that go with those. So until then, Happy practicing.